Okay, let's look at pedigrees. Pedigree is going to trace a trait for us through a family tree. Squares represent males, circles represent females. If you have a shaded in circle or square, that person has the trait. Sometimes you'll see a half shaded in circle, and that represents someone that has the heterozygous genotype, so they carry the trait, but they don't show the trait. So they would be heterozygous for that. What we're going to look at today is we're going to look at a pedigree that traces a widow's peak through a family tree. And we know that this trait is the dominant trait. So the recessive trait is no widow's peak. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what are our genotypes for these people, and then we're going to see if we can figure out the genotypes of each person in our pedigree. So the genotype for the recessive allele is going to be the homozygous recessive genotype, little w, little w. Dominant can either be big W to big W or big W, little w. Now when I'm trying to do a pedigree, what I do first is I always go in and fill in what I know. The recessive trait, there's only one option there, so we can go in and fill in all of those genotypes because we know what they are. So I'm going to go through and put my little W's for all of my recessive people. Okay, and I know that each one of these people has at least one dominant allele, so I'll go in and fill those in. Okay, and then I need to look at parents and kids and see if I can figure out what I need to know from looking at offspring. So if I want to try to figure out what his genotype is, I can look at these two kids here, and I know that he had a kid that is two little W's. One came from the mom, so he has to have a little W if he has kids that have two little W's. Okay, I can look at this kid and determine that she also has a little W, one from this parent, one from this parent. Okay, I can do the same here, and I see that they have a kid that is homozygous recessive, so I know each of them has a little W, which leaves us with her and her. You can look at her parents to determine her genotype. We know she got the big W here because this is the only allele in her parents that's big, so she had to get a small one from her mom. We can test that if we want to with a pedigree, and we could do a pedigree for these two parents to see if that's true. So I'm going to pull this down and do a quick pedigree for these two parents and prove that that indeed is her genotype. Okay, and if you want to do it this way, you can see the only two genotypes she can have if these are her parents are heterozygous and homozygous recessive. Okay, so she can't be big W, so we know she's big W, little w. We can do the same thing for her. Let's go ahead and do a Punnett square for her parents, although we don't need to, but we can do it to see if what we think is correct. Okay, so her possible genotypes, we know she has one big W. She could have two, or she could be heterozygous, and we can't determine from what we know, since she doesn't have any kids yet, what her genotype is. You can just leave a blank there because we don't know what her second allele would be.